The Berwyn Mountains incident is very, very interesting because it's often been described as Britain's Roswell, in that there's some people who believe that something crashed into the mountain that night. This is in January 1974. And some people believe that it was a real UFO like at Roswell, that the government removed it and it's been kept secret ever since. What we actually know from these papers now, we can see the original documentation, and what appears to have happened is there was a massive explosion that was heard in the Welsh valleys in North Wales. People sort of heard this and thought there'd been an air crash, and lots of people rushed outside. This is late at night, one night in January. While they were milling around in the streets and looking up in the sky, they could see all these bizarre lights flying through the sky, you know, green fireballs they were described as, some of them. And of course, people linked the two things together. They called the police went up on the mountain, searched, couldn't find anything. RAF Valley Mountain Rescue Team went out, flew over the area, no sign of an impact. So it was all a bit of a mystery. A couple of days later, it was confirmed that the actual explosion didn't come from the sky, it came from under the ground because it was a mini earthquake that had been registered on the Richter scale. And bizarrely, shortly after this earthquake, there was a meteor shower. So astronomers had seen these meteors. So it was just one of those things where everything comes together and creates a UFO legend. But what had actually happened was there'd been an earthquake, people had gone outside, looked in the sky and seen these lights, and they were actually pieces of rock from outer space that were burning up. So there is a factual basis to the story, in the same way that with the Roswell incident, the original Roswell incident, something happened. Even the American Air Force admit that something happened. It's just that they say it was a secret balloon test, and the people who believe in aliens think it was a cover-up of a crash flying saucer.
Why do you think Wales is such a hotbed for UFO activity?
I guess it's because it's got the sort of like, you know, it's got the sort of Celtic legends, you know, all the stories about dragons and that kind of thing. You know, Wales is absolutely rich with that kind of folklore. And, you know, it's also got sort of areas like the Berwyn Mountains that are quite remote. So there's the idea that perhaps something could crash there and it could be successfully covered up. A lot more difficult to do that if it was central London, for instance. You know, so I think it's got that sort of romantic, sort of remote image, which seems to attract these kinds of stories.
These shelves at the National Archive contain thousands of documents, Britain's real-life X-Files, with details of possible UFO sightings and reports of strange goings-on over the years. Loads of new information has been released, including cuttings and newspaper headlines from years gone by. They include a story about a quiet little village halfway between Glasgow and Edinburgh, described, rather alarmingly perhaps for those who live there, as the UFO capital of Britain. There's also a more light-hearted story about a UFO shaped like a digestive biscuit. The file includes data captured on the Welsh Coast Guard's radar. There are also forms detailing what people think they may or may not have seen. There are letters too from members of the public, like this one about a strange sighting of lights in County Durham in the summer of 2007. The note in the file suggests they might, in fact, have been helium balloons or Chinese lanterns.